Hey guys, Amber Marshall here. Tune into this episode of Under the Saddle podcast, where Adam and I connect over horses and, surprisingly, ice cream.
Under the Saddle.
So Amber, great to see you. It kind of feels like November, because that's normally when I get to see you at the Royal Windsor Fair, but where are you at the moment?
I'm at my home in Calgary, Alberta. I'm originally from Ontario, Canada, and obviously went to the Royal Winter Fair growing up as a kid, and I still get to go back there and visit everyone and see you, so it's kind of like homecoming week. But I was brought out to Alberta, Canada, for my role on Heartland, which I'm sure we'll get to a little bit later, but it's been quite a transition over the years, and I really do feel quite at home here.
I love Calgary. I get to go there during the summer for Spruce Meadows and then back in September. And I love the beef there as well. I know that's a bit random for people that have never been, but Alberta beef is pretty special.
It's a thing. It's just like Ontario corn. I miss Ontario corn, but I get Alberta beef.
The other thing I love there is Marble Slab. Do you ever go to Marble Slab?
All the time. I was actually there 2 nights ago, to be quite honest with you. So I'm a bit of an ice cream nut.
And for people that haven't been there, obviously it's an ice cream shop. What's your favourite flavour?
I usually go with coconut and dark chocolate mixed together. And you're making me, I've got a liter of Marble Slab ice cream, coconut and dark chocolate in my freezer right now. I might have to dive into it after this call. And then I usually mix in a little bit of dark chocolate and coconut flakes in there, and it's excellent.
I go for birthday cake and cookie dough.
Okay. I know you're kind. I have a few friends that go for the same combo.
So let's head back in time. How did it all kind of start for you? Because you started off as an actress rather than a horse person, didn't you? Or was it always combined?
It was actually the opposite. So I started when I was very young riding, and that was just mostly kind of primarily fun around a farm. My parents leased a pony for me when I was 5, named Tony the Pony, and I would go out on my weekends and they would lead me around, and I just had a blast. That was kind of my intro into horses, and so I absolutely loved every minute of it. But at the same time, I loved theater, and so when I was 8 years old, I started doing local theater plays, and so I guess the two of them, I kind of grew up with the two of them working in unison. I would have my horses on the weekends. I would go to the theater school after my regular elementary school days. And I loved both of them equally. And when I began my high school time, acting was hard to balance with all of your high school education and going to auditions and being taken away to film projects. So I kind of took a little bit of a back seat. And I said, I just want to focus on graduating from regular high school, not having to be all over the place and being tutored. And so I stuck through with that. But all the while I had a horse. So I got my first horse when I was around 11 or 12. His name was Monty. He was a big chestnut quarter horse, 4 white socks, beautiful. And I was a little bit in over my head. Monty was, he was a 4-year-old Greenbroke horse. We bought at an auction for very reasonably for a reason. It was just one of those things that my mom loves horses. She grew up with horses and then wasn't able to have them in her adult years. So I think she lived vicariously through me. And she's like, let's just go to this horse auction. And I'd been riding for quite a few years and taking lessons, but I'd never owned a horse up until now. And, you know, when you're taking lessons as a kid, usually you're on a pretty quiet schooling horse and, you know, you're not training anything by any means. And we went to this auction and both of us fell in love with Monty, his sweet face, and we're like, oh, well, let's just get a number at the auction just in case. And I looked at my mom like, we're trouble, like Dad's gonna be mad. And sure enough, number 131 was Monty, and we got him for a pretty good deal, and then found out very quickly why he was a deal. And I had to then make the call to my trainer at the time, who was an English trainer out of London, Ontario, and I said, hey, I just bought this Greenbroke 4-year-old at an auction, and we can't get him on the trailer. And there was probably about 10 people trying to help us load this horse. And it wasn't working. And anyway, in the end, it worked out quite well. He taught me a ton. I taught him lots. And I think we both kind of grew together. I taught him to be a hunter jumper. And he had come from just Western roots. And he was probably the most awkward horse that I've ever jumped. But he had such a big heart. And once he got to know me and grew out of his adolescence, he was such a great companion for me. And like I said, I learned so much in the process.
And growing up, were your parents quite supportive of acting? I went to stage school when I was a child, but it was always kind of made to feel like a bit of a hobby and something that would never kind of feature. And it turns out it sort of does now, but I've done so much in between those things, but it was never kind of supported as a job. So were you kind of supported in that you were going to do this as a career?
My parents are awesome. I wouldn't say they supported it as a career. I think it snuck up on all of us, to be quite honest, because it was a hobby for me through school. It wasn't something that I thought I was going to do forever. In fact, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. Right. So from a very young age, I was planning and telling my parents, when I grow up, I'm going to be a vet. I had planned out where I was going to own my clinic and what my clinic was going to be called and what all these slogans I had for different products I was going to have, and like that was my 100% focus. So I don't know that they ever thought that I was this dreamer thinking, oh, I'm going to be an actress one day, I'm going to go to Hollywood, it was never really on any of our radar. Acting was something that I was doing as a hobby, and I was more focused on the animals. And when I was 14 years old, I started working in a vet clinic near my high school. And I was like, I need money to pay for my horse that I bought at a sale. Yeah. And my parents were really good about the whole responsibility side of it. They're like, we'll help you out because we feel like this is a very healthy hobby that you have. And we like that we always know you're at the barn. And we like that you're putting all of your time and effort outside of school with your horse. They thought it was a very healthy hobby, which I fully agree with. And I'm always on board when parents ask me, oh, I want to get my kid into horses, but I don't know if it's a good idea. And I say, you know what? There's a lot more expensive hobbies out there because I think that horses keep you out of trouble. They keep your kid out of jail. They, all those things. It's like a horse or bail money. I don't know. But I was a very hardworking and dedicated horse owner, I think. And I would go out and spend as much time as I could with my horse. And then I would go work at the vet clinic to help pay for board and any lessons that I wanted to do, or I would go and clean stalls, exchange for lessons, things like that. And I always just made it work. And I think that that's what being a horse owner is. It's making it work because they are time consuming, they are expensive, but there's something that's so rewarding about it in the end, and something that is so mentally and physically fulfilling that it allows you to put the rest of it aside and say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it work. And in the end, I'll be a better person for it. So that was kind of my beginning into horses, I guess. And the fact that I wasn't planning on being an actor was kind of a blessing in disguise because I was still auditioning for roles when I was a teenager. And I just took a little bit of a backseat, like I said before, with having schooling and trying to balance it all. And then when I was 18, I said, I don't quite know what I want to do yet, because at the time I'd been working in the vet clinic for 4 years, and I decided, you know what, being a veterinarian's not exactly what I had thought originally. It was more people-based than animal-based, and I think it all depends what situation you're in, but I was like, I always wanted to be a veterinarian because I wanted to be around animals all day and help animals. And after working 4 years in a clinic, I realized, no, it's more about people and their needs for their animals. And, they might have a totally different idea than you, and too bad for you. It's like, it's not necessarily in the end what's always right for the animal. It's what the owner decides. And so I said, maybe this isn't something I want to do for the rest of my life. Plus, I wasn't that committed to be spending the next 10, 12 years in more school. So I started just going to more auditions. After high school, I was like, I'm going to take acting a little bit more seriously. I'm going to try it out. Why not? I've been doing it since I was young. And lo and behold, I got this audition for this little horse show in Alberta called Heartland. And when I read the script, I was like, oh, this role is really suited to me, because most of the roles I auditioned for didn't have any animals involved, and I'm a huge animal lover. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. It's this horse girl who lives on a ranch in Alberta, and she loves horses. And so when I recorded the audition, I just sent in a self-tape, and I remember saying at the beginning, I was like, hi, I'm Amber Marshall, and I have 2 horses of my own. I love horses. And the producers after the fact said, right then and there, when we saw that you had horses, they said, well, I hope this girl can act, because this is what we need. We need someone who's familiar with horses. And so I think that was my shoe-in. And apparently I acted okay. So they said, yeah, come on over to Alberta and let's film the pilot. So the pilot episode was just one episode that we filmed to see how it was going to do on a test audience. We filmed that back in November of 2007, I believe. So many, many years ago. I was just a young one. And then it seemed to resonate with a lot of different audiences. So we came back for season 1, and here we are 17 years later.
It's been a long road. Before you got to Heartland, what were the kind of main highlights? Because obviously everyone knows you from Heartland, but you've done quite a bit before, and you've done some singing as well.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. I enjoy singing, but I've never taken it seriously as a career or anything like that. So if there was ever an acting role that, again, sort of like when Heartland saw that I had horse experience, if there was an acting role that came up that needed someone who could sing, I was like, yeah, I guess I can. Like, so there was a few roles. For example, Christmas Shoes was a Christmas movie I did with Rob Lowe and Kimberly Williams way back in 2001, I want to say, a long time ago. And I did some singing in that. And then there was a few series that I did. And again, I didn't really take acting seriously as a career until I graduated high school. So for those roles, I loved it and I had so much fun with it. My very first role was on a kids show called Super Rupert. And it was just a cast full of kids, and it was such a great intro into the world of acting on screen because we just had a great time. You know, we were a bunch of 12-year-old kids who got to go to work and make money doing something we loved and get out of school and all those things that you enjoy when you're 12 years old. So I think that's really what lit that spark inside me for my love of on-screen acting, because up until then I'd only done theater, which I really enjoy as well because you have that live audience and you have that instant gratification, which you almost get now with social media. That's a whole nother story. But it's a very different platform. And so to have a really great intro into the world of acting right as a kid, I think was really important and gave me a strong foundation for how I feel about it and that spark that is still in me today.
Does Heartland ever kind of go on tour? Have you ever done like a theatre tour? I don't know how it would translate with all the animals and stuff, probably impossible to do. But have you ever done anything like that, like road shows or tours? No? It's
funny you mention that though, because there was a few people have pitched the idea and kind of gone along the road of doing somewhat of a live show, but contained in like a Royal Winter Fair setting where you have an arena and you have horses that come in, and it's more about the connection with the audience and letting them behind the veil, letting them see the secrets of cinema. Because as you know, these horses, they're not trained actors. They may be excellent horses, but they don't know the script. They don't know what we're trying to accomplish. So there's a lot of things that we do on set that help facilitate their role. And we use multiple horses. So for one character of a horse, we could have 6 to 8 horses playing that same role.
Yeah.
So then you have a whole horse makeup team that comes in and matches them. And, you know, it's just, it's unbelievable what goes in behind the scenes just to make one episode of the show. So it would be very interesting to call back to what you were saying and just have that lifting of the veil in front of a live audience and say, if we were going to complete a scene right now, here are all the steps we would need to take, and here's all the horses we would need to use, and just having that as somewhat of a theatrical show, but also educational and letting everyone in behind the scenes.
It'd be amazing to do it at the Royal Winter Fair.
Well, there you go.
We should do that, totally.
There's a pitch.
What's the writers like? Because they must be pretty amazing to go that amount of years. And do you ever have to kind of interject a little bit? Obviously, the horse experience you've got. I've done TV shows where, you know, people want to do something with horses, but it's just so clear they have no idea what's going on. I'm assuming your writers are pretty kind of farm and horse savvy.
You know what? I'm really happy to hear you say that, because they're not. And that's what such a great job they do, and how much they have embraced this show over the last 17 plus years, is the fact that all of them have no prior horse experience. Some have never even been on a horse. And so all of the research is done through talking to people, a lot of people on and involved with the show in the wrangling department, people who have had horses, myself, just talking with anyone who has some kind of a connection to a story that's worth telling. And that's what a writer does, right? They're always listening. You're telling a story and they're listening going, oh, really? That's really? And then what happened? And then what happened? So I think that's the beauty of being a writer, is you're just always absorbing the world around you. And the great thing about Alberta is it's so rich in content. Alberta
Yeah.
has so much access to horse culture and rural culture that it's very obtainable for writers just to take it in. And we've switched up writers over the years. We've got a great team. Some come, some go, some, bring in really great ideas, and we just kind of expand on that. And there have been some in the past that have had a horse or been around horses and things like that. But for the bulk of it, I would say that it's just done from them being really good at their job.
Have they ever written a part for a Scottish guy that happens to be in Calgary over the summer? Or I would love to guest on Heartland.
Yeah, I'll put in a special request. And what do you see your role being?
Anything. Stalls, maybe? I could do
And
stalls.
what would your character name be? I need something to go from here.
It needs to be
What have
something
you always
really
wanted?
Scottish, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Something McTavish, probably.
Oh, I like it.
Something strong. Definitely
Okay.
something strong.
First name?
Hector or Hamish.
Oh, I
Hamish
like-
McTavish. There we go. That's
Wow.
a proper Heartland name.
I can just see it writes itself. Like,
I would be in the back eating marble slab. Bit of product placement there, right there.
yep,
Yeah.
love it.
All set. All
Or
set.
maybe you have a horse that has an addiction to marble slab.
Exactly. Exactly.
You bring your horse to the ranch because you want to compete on your horse, but you can't because it has this addiction to coconut ice cream.
It writes itself.
I told you. See, we can be writers. It's not that hard.
And
it's
what's your...
I was just going to say, it's funny you go there because having a show, we filmed over close to 260 hour-long episodes. It's a lot of television time. It's a lot. It's funny just saying that out loud. But to think that our writing department has had to come up with over 260 horse stories that are relevant and believable, but also different enough that the viewers aren't like, we saw that last week, another blind horse or another, horse that won't walk over a bridge or whatever it might be. We have to get creative enough. And yes, of course, there's going to be a little bit of recycled material from over the years because there are horses that have similar problems. But I think that they have done a really good job at covering a lot of different ailments and injuries and things that happen in the horse world that as horse people we know, and it's not fun, but these things do happen. And I think for our regular viewers who don't experience horses on a daily basis, it's kind of that little window into this world. And it's inspiring for people too, because they think, wow, like this is really cool. I would like to have that connection with a horse. I would like to go out and learn how to ride. And I believe that the show, I don't even believe, I know from the countless stories that I've been told that Heartland has inspired numerous people who have never been on a horse before to go and start taking lessons or to at least just go out and experience that connection with them. And I'm proud of that because I think that I believe horses are very special, and I think that they really do a lot for the heart and soul of humans. And the more we can connect and be around horses, I just feel like the better mindset we're in and the better we are as a grounded individual.
What's kind of kept you grounded? Is it the horses? Because obviously it's a really successful show. You've, let's not hide it, made tons of money now. And you've not gone off the rails. You still act as a great role model. That's something that's really important. Well, only with marble slab.
There you go.
Coconut ice cream's the only addiction. But yeah, you haven't kind of gone off the rails. And sort of being a role model is something that seems to be really kind of important for you.
Yeah, I think that it's who you are. And I do believe that Hollywood can change people. It really can. But I think that it's the foundation that you start with that really happens to take this industry by a grounded level. So for me, I've always been around animals. I've always had animals in my life. And I do think that the responsibility of being a caregiver is one thing that's really kept me grounded because I couldn't go out. Ever since I was young, I've always had at least a dog in the home. That is my responsibility. So, you're a young person. I was new to Calgary. I'm like, yeah, I'll go out for a little bit, but then I got to get home to let my dog out, or I can't stay out too late because I have a dog. And sometimes it works as an excuse too, because I'm not a huge partier. I don't love going out late. So I could be like, oh, sorry, I got to get home to the dog or whatever it might be. But I do believe that animals and the responsibility of caring for them do keep a person grounded. Because right now, and my husband and I we have a bunch of horses and cows and chickens and dogs and cats, and there's all kinds of critters running around here. And we don't have a farmhand or anyone to help us out. It's just us. And my husband gets up really early to go to work as well. And so for myself, it's like, it's very nurturing, or it's very grounding, like we talked about, to have to get up every morning, go out and do chores, make sure everybody's okay before I make sure I'm okay. So I go out and I feed everybody and I do the quick check, and okay, everybody's fine, I'll come in, I'll eat, and then get on with my day. But I think that incentive to get up, get out of bed, get the day moving is something that is so important. And it also really helps keep me in check. Because I can't be like, whatever, it's fine, I'll get to it, or I'm just going to sleep the day away, and I'm not that person. I've always been someone who likes to stay busy. So, as you know, having animals keeps you busy, and so does this industry. And so I think that that's where people get caught up, is that you can be really busy in a negative way, and you can be really busy going out and partying every night and doing that if you don't have something to balance it with. So for me, I stay really busy on the farm, and I like being alone, and I like just going out with my animals and doing my thing. So that's not to say, that just a grounded individual can't go off the deep end. But I believe that if you have a really good foundation, a really good start, good upbringing, however you want to look at it, good morals, internal values, then you can look at those options presented in front of you and say, you know what? That looks like it might be fun, but it's not for me. And I think that's just how I've always kind of played my life, especially in this world where it can take you by surprise and it can catch you off guard and down the wrong path.
And how does it work when you are filming? Is your husband on his own on the farm and has to do everything, or?
No, I'm a big believer that if I bring in animals, I have to look after them. So if I want to bring home 9 horses, I have to feed 9 horses every day. And luckily for us, the filming schedule of Heartland is usually during the summer months. So our horses are out on pasture. So we don't hay feed in the summer, which is awesome. So I got it pretty regimented, or simplified, I guess would be the better word. And I wake up early in the morning, and it's just part of my routine. And in the summer in Alberta, it's light at 4:30 in the morning. So you actually have daylight to go out and do chores in, which is nice. So I'll wake up. I just basically do a farm check. I feed the dogs, I feed the chickens, I look and make sure everybody's okay. And but the cows and horses are just grazing, so they don't require a whole lot. And then I go off to work. And then when I come back from work, it's light until 9, 10 o'clock here in the summertime. So I can go out and spend a little bit more time with the animals and make sure everybody's all right. And I think most of the horses I have here are here because they are low maintenance. I don't need to be riding them every day. I don't need to be exercising them, because they're out in a very large paddock with all of their buddies, and they're exercising themselves, and they're running around and having a good time. So I don't feel guilty that they're not getting exercised, or they're not getting the attention they need, because they're just in a herd. They're just having fun. Yeah. And then in the wintertime, when I have more time to spend with them, that's when I can start, going to arenas and getting them legged up a bit, getting them and myself in shape. And so it's just, I think it's dependent on your schedule and what works for you and your animals.
Have any of your animals ever been on set? Have they ever been in Heartland?
Yeah. So the majority of the horses on the show all belong to one person, and that's for a lot of different reasons. One, insurance, because there's a lot of different, things that are involved. And also there's a team of wranglers that bring the horses to set every day. So if they had to go to everybody else's house and pick up a horse every morning, it would be like the school bus into town. It just probably wouldn't be very efficient or effective. So they go to one ranch in the morning, pick up all the horses, bring them to set. So logistically, that's just always made sense. But when they need a specific horse that might not be at that ranch, they look elsewhere. So it first started many years ago. I'm going to say probably almost a decade ago now. My little miniature horse played Monty. So his name's Talon in real life. And they said, we need a cute little miniature that's nice and quiet. And I said, I think I got one. So Talon was able to play a role on Heartland as Monty. And then just more recently, the older horse that's on the show, Spartan, who's like the main kind of horse that's been with Amy since the beginning of the series, in real life, he's getting quite old. He's in his 20s. He's got really bad arthritis in his knees. And we were using him, but just for nice, slow, gentle stuff. And you could just tell he was starting to get grumpy. So they decided to retire him a couple years ago. And ironically, I have a black horse in my field that's quiet and looks just like Spartan. So I said, hey guys, would I be able to use my horse for this role? Because I have a connection with him already. And I had quite the bond with the original horse, Stormy, who played Spartan, because we'd been working together for 15 seasons. So 15 years of spending time with this horse. And he was 5 years old when the show started. And now he's in his 20s. Right. So it's a pretty cool experience to be able to have that journey, not just with my human cast members, but with the equine cast members as well, which is kind of neat, something special. And so now my horse Hawk gets to come to work with me, and that role isn't as prominent anymore because in the show, of course, Spartan is in his 20s as well, and so he's just ridden for light riding and things like that. So Hawk will come to work with me probably 2-3 times a month, but it's just nice to have your horse there. It's kind of special.
Yeah, it must be. What's been your kind of favourite storylines over the years? Are there any that really stick out?
There's been a lot of really cool things that I've got to do on the show that I never would have done without the show. I always joke that my character her nickname on the show is the Miracle Girl, and she really is. I'm like, how does this character do all of these disciplines and really well? It's like one day she'll be jumping in an Olympic pen, and the next day she's team roping or ranch roping out in the field, and she does them all very well. And I always laugh because I'm like, if I actually met someone like Amy Fleming, I don't know what I would say to them. I would just be in awe because it's almost not possible. But I won't say that because this is the reality we've created for this role. And I think what has helped that and what's helped bring the realism to that is the fact that I have touched in a lot of different disciplines over the years. I've never been fully committed into one style of riding, or I grew up riding English, and then I started riding Western, and so I've had a little bit of a background in everything. Now, I've never done any of those things well, but I enjoy them all, and I've experienced them all. So I think that gives me enough of a background as an actor to be able to play that role, to be able to make it as believable as I can. Because having a little bit of information on everything, I feel like is better than just being completely informed on one topic, for myself anyway. And so that allows me to make my character just very adaptable and approachable. And I think over the years, some of my favorite storylines have been those that are something that I'm interested in but never would have reached out and done it on my own time. Liberty work, for example. I absolutely love getting to work at Liberty with these incredibly trained horses. But that's not an opportunity I probably would have pursued if I hadn't been on the show. We've had some really talented horse trainers on Heartland over the years, but Nikki Flundra has been such a grounding role model to me because she's just so easygoing, and she brings in her horses and they always do such a great job, and she's like, oh sure, we'll do that. Same with Dan James. Dan James has come in and done some incredible work for us, and it's really cool to be able to watch the connection that they have with their horses and be able to say, that is the real life Amy Fleming. That is someone who lives and breathes this connection and understands that communication so well that they basically are just speaking horse. And for me, I've learned so much from that because I've had horses in my life as long as I can remember. And some of the most joyful moments I have as a horse person would be understanding and recognizing the communication, because they do speak to us. And it's just sometimes we're too busy or we're too set on a certain goal to listen to that. But you go and you spend an hour sitting on a fence post and just watching horses interact with each other, and you can pick up on it pretty quickly. And so then when you recognize it when they're talking their own language, you can then see when they tell you something, you're like, oh, I get it. Sorry, didn't mean that. Or the other way, like, oh, you're enjoying this. So I think that it's really important as a horse person, if you're involved in any type of horse sport, no matter what it is, to be able to recognize that communication and put in the groundwork and put in that effort to understand the horse you're working with. Because I think a lot of times we just put a blanket over all of them and it's like, this button does this button does this, and this button does this. And it's like, that's not true for all horses. And yeah, they may have been trained in a similar way, but are you actually listening to them? They're trying to listen to you. So, you can only do them the benefit of reaching out and listening to what they have to say.
What are you like on set? Are you a bit of a nightmare and wander off to just spend time with animals, or do they have to come looking for you a lot? Because that's the kind of feel that I'm getting.
They do. I'm not a super social person with humans, which is funny in my line of work. I'm a bit of an introvert, but when I need to, I can put on that other role. But you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of times when I'll hear, because everybody has walkies, like walkie-talkies on set. Yeah. And I'll hear a walkie in the distance going, has anyone seen Amber? And then I'll hear someone else answer, have you checked with the horses? And it's usually a new person that asks where I am, because anyone who has been there for years knows that if I'm not right on set, I'm usually sitting with the horses and just taking it in. And I think that it could be worse. There's actors that go and sit in their trailer and don't want to come out and complain that it's too cold or that it's too hot or they don't have enough pink M&Ms, whatever it might be. So the fact that I might go missing once in a while and be found sitting in the field is, I think, they can choose their battles.
What's going to be coming up on Heartland? Is there anything you can tell us? Well, one thing I've got to ask is about Ty, because we've got a soap here called EastEnders, and years and years and years ago, one of the main characters was shot, fell into a river, was dead, and somehow he managed to come back. And there's rumours all over the internet that Ty's coming back. So what's going on?
There have been storylines written by very dedicated fans numerous times of Ty's revival or his coming back to Heartland. And I just don't know how we could make that work in the Heartland world. It's like, yes, we've been compared to as a soap opera in some ways, but I do think that the show's realism and the fact that we have just such a grounding nature to the show, it would be bizarre if all of a sudden after 4 years, this character reemerges and everyone goes, oh, we thought you were dead. Like, oh, okay, it's all good now, let's move on. I personally can't see it logistically making sense. And that's not even the half of it. You have to respect that the actor has moved on. So it's not like the writers were just like, oh, we want to do something dramatic, we're going to kill off this character. It was a request that came from Graham Wardle. So as his fellow cast members, we can't be like, hey, come back on the show, like we want to create a new story and spice things up. Like, I just don't see that that's fair to him or to the fan base that looks at the show as a very real and relatable show. I think that would kind of just pull the sheet from underneath us, so to speak. So no, I don't, to answer your question, I don't believe that Ty will come back. But I think what's important for viewers that miss that story is to be able to appreciate the journey of something new. And because that's what life is. You never know when you're going to lose someone. You never know when something's going to happen in your life that you weren't expecting. And we all handle it differently. We go through grief and frustration and sadness and whatever those emotions are that a lot of the viewers felt when Ty left the show. I think that those are real feelings and those should be addressed, right? It's something that it's like those are coming from a real place and they should be recognized. And that helps better prepare you for other trauma in your life, I think. I think that every experience you go through, whether it be, just losing that connection to a character or to losing someone in your life or to losing an animal, I think that every time you experience loss, it comes with a whole new array of emotions, and you have to recognize how to move forward and push through that and come out a better version of yourself. And so I do think that with this role, I've been able to experience a lot of different things through my character and realize how I personally would deal with grief and loss and death and whatever might be presented my way. And for myself, I think it came from working so many years in a vet clinic and having a lot of animal death present. You know, I was witness to a lot of euthanasias. I was there when there was a lot of emergency cases that didn't work out in the animal's favor. And the first several times was extremely traumatic for me. I was also 14, 15 years old. And I remember thinking, you know, how do people do this every day? And they're trying to help these animals and, you know, they might lose one or just an older senior pet comes in and it's time for them to say goodbye. And you're in the room with the family of crying children and mom and dad are crying and their 13-year-old lab is sitting there just looking at you with these big, sad puppy dog eyes. And it's hard. It's really hard. But I found the more I learned how to recognize that and say, no, this isn't supposed to be easy, but at the same time, this is life. And things like this are going to happen. And where there is life, there is always going to be death. That's something that we can't prevent. And so it's learning how to deal with those emotions and recognize that it's okay to be sad, but you don't have to feel that grief, that anger, that all those other emotions that sometimes come with sadness. It's just a way of cleansing and being like, okay, I went through that. It was traumatic and I learned this. And now I'm moving on and I know that now I'm going to make sure I hug my dog extra tight tonight. And whatever it might be, you learn something and you walk away, hopefully, a better person from that experience.
What's the future for you? Because obviously you've done this for so long now. Do you worry about being typecast? Is there any roles that you're kind of desperate to play?
Oh, that was way back in season 4.
Because you are Amy, and Amy is you. I mean, I don't know where one stops and
you know what? It's true. And I think that's why this role has been so rewarding for me and so much fun, is because I'm truly living my life through my character, and my character's living through me. And I always joke that I wake up in the morning, I go out and do chores, and then I go to work and I pretend to do the same chores. And it's just a very strange kind of reality that I live in. But I also believe that it's me. I'm not trying to pretend really anything. I'm just living in 2 different places with 2 different families. And, you know, it's like, it can be
double life.
Yeah, I am. I'm living a double life, which as a Gemini is perfectly right up my alley. So I think I personally was never worried about being typecast, but that goes way back to I never even took acting seriously as a career. So I never thought, oh, I'm going to be an actor. When I'm 30, I'm going to be an actor and I never thought of those things. And so this has just been this perpetual motion of this character that has evolved and keeps renewing year after year. And it's a gift. It really is. Like there is no other role I would rather be doing right now. And I think that's when you get that instant satisfaction, that instant gratification of knowing that you're doing the right thing. Because how many people can say that they've been in any job? I don't care what it is. You're working in a dental office, you're working down for the town, whatever it might be, for 17 years.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. It's a really long time.
You were young when you started.
Yeah, I was. Now I'm old.
We're all getting old.
And so I think that if you're happy doing what you're doing, then why search for more? Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of people struggle, is that they always think they have to move on to the next step. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't constantly be bettering yourself. You shouldn't constantly be setting goals. I'm doing that all the time. But if you're not content with where you are and you're not striving to make yourself happy in that present moment, then you're never going to find that happiness because you're always going to be looking for it. And so for myself, from day one, I was like, this job is amazing. I love it. And it's like, yeah, not every day is great. Like, I'm not saying that it's all rainbows and unicorns every day. There's days that are hard. There's days that I'm tired. There's days that I have the flu and I still have to show up to work and pretend that I'm happy and, you know, I'm Amy Fleming out in the round pen. But I don't think about those days. I think about the days that make up 90% of the time that I'm on set when I'm like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I feel grounded. I feel centered. I feel happy. And by having that energy, I believe there's a ripple effect. And I do think that when you're happy with where you are, other people around you recognize it and realize that yeah, you know what? This isn't so bad. And I think that Heartland has such a great energy to it because of the locations that we film in, because of the animals that are on set. You can't help but just feel this relaxation, this ease of breath, because you're outside in beautiful locations. And so that's not to say that if I was, filming in a spaceship in a green screen studio somewhere, that I wouldn't still find that happiness. I wouldn't still find something that I'm like, this is so much fun. Like, we're playing in a spaceship and we're grown adults and like, this is awesome. I think that no matter what you do in life, you need to find a part of it, a piece of it to hold on to that really fulfills you, that makes you feel like, you know what, this is awesome. And if I can find that in everything I do, then I think that just perpetually moves you forward naturally, as opposed to trying to find the next thing and always be looking for that happiness.
So true. And thank you so much. We're going to ask you some quick fire questions before you go, though, if that's okay.
Of course.
Horse idol. Who's your kind of horse that kind of sticks out?
Horse idol in general?
Could be anyone.
These are supposed to be rapid fire. I'm not good at this. You know what? I'm actually going to go with my horse Hawk right now, who I said took over for the role of Spartan, because this is a horse that I've had for years. And he is, from the day I brought him home back in 2011, 10 maybe, he has always been an old soul. He was 4 years old when I brought him home. He was so just kind and giving and grounded. And still to this day, like, he's a horse that will die here because he is just such a good best friend. And he's not a horse that is my go-to riding horse because he's so lazy and slow. And I'm like, you know what, but if I need a hug, Hawk's my guy. I go out and just give him a big hug. Or if I just want to go for a quiet bareback ride by myself, Hawk's my guy. So I think in my horse herd here, he'd be the one I idolize.
What about rider idol? Any favorite riders?
See, and for me, like we talked about before, it's the connection side of it. So it's the Liberty trainers that stick out, because I don't think you have to specifically be a fabulous rider to have such a strong connection and understanding of a horse. And so I think like it's the Dan James, it's the Guy McLeans, it's the Nikki Flendras, the people that genuinely understand and connect with their horses are the people that I idolize the most.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh, goodness. I think, this is going to sound cliche, but I believe that the animals around me give the best advice. And that's just from me watching them and understanding that you have to live in the present moment. You have to be who you are, and you don't have to be guarded of that too. Animals, if they don't like something, they're going to snarl at you. If they don't want to be near you, they're going to move away. They're not trying to please you. Well, some dogs are, I guess, but they're not trying to be something they're not just because they think that's who you want them to be. And so that's really what I've learned being around animals and like-minded people as well, is that just be yourself. You don't have to try to be someone for somebody else, because those aren't the people you want to be around anyway. If you're trying to put on an act, if you're trying to fit in, so to speak, to a certain group, that means you don't fit there. And as animals, they know that. They just naturally know that. If there's a herd of horses and a new one comes in and they all pin their ears and toss their head, that other horse isn't going to join that group. It's going to go over with the group that it feels comfortable with. Yeah. And so I think as humans, we're constantly overthinking this, and we're saying, oh, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I just don't fit in because I need to change, or maybe whatever it might be. And the answer is simple. It's you don't fit in because you're not meant to be there. Find the group that you feel connected with, that you feel like you're supposed to be there, and then everything's easy.
Next one is, what's the worst advice you've ever been given? I always think this one's harder.
It is hard. I think especially when I was first starting out, and you mentioned it as well, it's like, don't get typecasted and you need to move on, next bigger and better, like all of those things that it echoed in my head from the very beginning. And it was noise to me. I was like, no, I'm going to do what makes me feel happy. And if that means that I don't do other acting roles in the future, okay, I'm fine with that. I want roles that call to me. I want roles that I feel satisfied and comfortable with. And just like I was talking about with, if it doesn't feel right, don't push it. Don't go towards it. You know, there's a reason that you have to have that gut check, that you have to check in with yourself and be like, why doesn't this feel right? Maybe because it's not. Maybe because it's not the right fit for me. So I think that the worst advice from people is just pushing you to something that you're not, that you know doesn't feel right.
And finally, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made? This is the hardest one.
I haven't made any mistakes. I don't believe in mistakes. I really don't, because everything I've done, bad or good, I have learned from. And so I think that mistakes are something that people put a word on something because they feel it put them in a negative place. But for me, anytime that happens, I get 2 times the positive from it. So it's not a mistake. It's like, it's a learning experience. It's something that I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that again. But it doesn't mean it was a mistake, because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't know those things. I would say, haven't made any mistakes in my life.
I love your energy. You're so positive. I'd love to see you play like some psychopathic serial killer or something, just to see what that dynamic could be like.
Yeah, well, and that would be fun. Like, I would
You'd be doing it with a smile, though.
Can you imagine? A little bit off-brand, but I feel like it would be fun. I do.
Well, Amber, thanks again. Hopefully when I'm in Calgary we can get a marble slab, and maybe Hamish McTavish can come and join Heartland.
I would love that. You get planning your stories, and I need a little bit more of a character background from you, and then I'll submit it to our writing team, and we'll see what we can do.
Perfect. I'll be all over it. Well, thanks again. And I'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Adam.
Under the Saddle.